We were told that Lucifer fell, cast down for pride, exiled for rebellion. But what if the story we've believed for centuries was only half the truth? Long before mankind ever sinned, a mission was set in motion, one that required a being radiant enough to walk in glory, yet strong enough to carry darkness without being consumed. Lucifer didn't fall, he was sent. I form the light and create darkness. I, the Lord, do all these things. Isaiah 45:7. He became the test, not the enemy. And if you've never heard this before, that's because you were never meant to. What if Lucifer never fell? We were told that Lucifer fell, that he rose in pride, tried to take the throne of heaven, and was cast down in righteous fury. It's a story carved into stained glass, repeated in sermons, and etched into the fears of generations. But what if it's not the whole story? What if the fall wasn't rebellion, but assignment? In the book of Job, Satan, believed by many to be Lucifer, appears not in disgrace, but in audience with the Most High. He walks among the sons of God. He speaks to the Lord, he listens, he obeys. He is not bound, he is not banished, he is present. Now, there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them. Job 1:6. There is no fire, no exile, no judgment in this moment. There is only order, recognition, permission. This is not the image of a rebel cast out. This is an agent reporting in, a servant, functioning within limits assigned from above. So we must ask, if Lucifer had truly been expelled from heaven, why is he still allowed to enter its courts? Why is he still able to speak directly with God? Why is he still operating under divine constraints? Unless what we call rebellion was never rebellion at all. Long before mankind was created, before sin had a name, there was a need for contrast, for testing, for choice. For love to be real, it must be chosen, and choice only exists when both light and shadow are present. I form the light and create darkness. I, the Lord, do all these things. Isaiah 45:7. God did not need a monster. He needed a mirror, one who could walk between light and darkness, one who could carry temptation without being consumed, at least for a time. And Lucifer, the morning star, the most radiant of angels, was chosen. He did not demand the role. He accepted it. He was sent, not as an outcast, but as an instrument, not as the enemy, but as the test, to challenge the hearts of men, to reveal the true nature of faith, not through force, but through subtle, sacred pressure. And in the beginning, he obeyed. But perhaps the greatest deception isn't what Lucifer became. It's what he was before he changed. Because the truth that shakes the foundations of heaven and earth is this: Lucifer didn't fall. He was sent. Heaven's secret assignment. If Lucifer was sent, then who sent him, and why? These are not questions meant for the casual believer. They are dangerous questions because they pull back the veil on a side of heaven that many fear to confront. But Scripture does not hide the uncomfortable. It only waits for the ones willing to see. Before the first man ever drew breath, the war had already begun. Not a war of swords and fire, but of purpose. The throne of God did not tremble out of fear. It moved with strategy. The plan of redemption was not reactionary. It was written into creation itself. God knew that free will would demand a test. That love, to be real, must be chosen in the presence of something that opposes it. That opposition had to come from somewhere, or rather, someone. Lucifer, the morning star, the anointed cherub who walked among the stones of fire, was the only being radiant enough to reflect glory and yet distinct enough to descend into shadow. He was not cast into darkness. He was assigned to it. You were the anointed guardian cherub. I placed you. You were on the holy mountain of God. Ezekiel 28:14. His mission? To test the hearts of men, not through brutality, but through suggestion, not through domination, but deception. He would not come with chains, but with words, not as a monster, but as a messenger. He would whisper, not roar. He would offer, not command. He would imitate light so closely, so convincingly, that only the truly faithful could discern the difference. And that was the point. Lucifer's role was to reveal what was hidden inside the soul, to expose false devotion, to press against the boundaries of obedience, to make every act of faith a choice, not a reflex. And in this, he did not rebel. He served, not with joy, not with love, but with precision. For a time, his assignment was carried out exactly as heaven intended. He was not punished. He was used, until something changed. But that moment, when the mission became ambition, belongs to another part of the story. For now, understand this. Lucifer was heaven's darkest servant, not because he disobeyed, but because he obeyed a command no other angel dared to accept. When obedience turned into pride, Lucifer obeyed. In the beginning, he carried out his role not with rebellion, but with precision. He tested, he questioned, he whispered exactly as he had been commanded. He was the pressure against purity, the resistance that revealed truth. And for a time, heaven watched in silence, but darkness, even when assigned, has weight. Lucifer did not stumble into pride overnight. It came slowly, like smoke curling through unseen cracks. He saw the weakness in mankind. He saw their awe, their fear, their trembling obedience, not to God directly, but to the words he delivered. And in that moment, something shifted. What began as a mission began to feel like dominion. He no longer saw himself as the tester, but as the rightful judge. No longer a servant of purpose, but a carrier of justice. He began to believe that he, not God, could determine who deserved salvation. That he was the mirror, but also the measure. You said in your heart, I will ascend to the heavens. I will raise my throne above the stars of God. I will make myself like the Most High. Isaiah 14:13-14. This was not spoken aloud. It was thought. Quietly, internally, a seed planted in silence. He had descended in obedience, but now desired to remain in control. What makes Lucifer's transformation so terrifying is not how sudden it was, but how reasonable it seemed. He still looked like light, still spoke with elegance, still moved in the space heaven had once allowed him. But inside, he had crossed a line no other angel dared to approach. He no longer carried the test. He became it. The mission warped into ambition. The mirror became a mask, and heaven, which had once sent him, now prepared to draw the sword. But before judgment came, permission was granted one last time. Lucifer would not be removed instantly. His role as the adversary, now twisted by pride, would still serve the plan. He would be allowed to roam, to tempt, to accuse, not as a servant, but now as a shadow of what he once was. Heaven did not lose control. It simply let the lie unfold so that truth could burn even brighter. The Lord has made everything for its purpose, even the wicked for the day of trouble. Proverbs 16:4. And so the morning star, once anointed, now moved forward, not as light reflecting heaven's will, but as light imitating heaven's image. A deception so perfect that many still call him divine. Why God let him continue? If Lucifer had truly fallen, if pride had severed him from his purpose, then why was he allowed to remain? Why did God, who commands the stars and silences the storm, not end him the moment his heart turned? This is the question that echoes in every soul that dares to look beyond the surface. We assume that rebellion must be met with destruction, that justice is immediate, that holiness has no patience for betrayal. But Scripture speaks differently. Lucifer continues to exist, not in hiding, not in shame, but active, present, moving across the earth like breath through shadow. He whispers, he tempts, he schemes, and yet he remains, not outside of God's reach, but within his allowance. Be self-controlled and alert. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. 1 Peter 5:8. This verse does not speak of a fallen king in chains. It speaks of a creature still functioning within limits, still operating in a story far larger than himself. So why would God allow him to continue? Because Lucifer's fall was not a mistake in God's plan, it was part of it. From the beginning, God ordained that love must be a choice, and choice is only real when it faces opposition. What Lucifer became was not beyond God's foresight. In fact, it served the very test humanity was created to endure. He became the adversary, the one who would press against the human soul, not to destroy it blindly, but to reveal what lies within, the sifting of hearts, the refining of faith, the darkness against which light proves its strength. Simon, Simon, Satan has asked to sift you like wheat. Luke 22:31. God did not deny him. He permitted it, because he knew that through the tension, something holy would emerge. Lucifer was not allowed to continue because he triumphed, but because his presence still serves purpose. He is the necessary resistance in a world that must choose, a mirror that distorts, but in doing so, reveals the truth of what we reflect. He is a lion, but leashed, a deceiver, but not unleashed beyond divine control, a shadow that cannot outrun the sovereignty of light. God has never lost control, not in Eden, not in heaven, not in your life. Even the greatest enemy of heaven still bends to his will. What this means for you. If all of this is true, if Lucifer did not fall but was sent, if his presence was not an accident but a test, then the story is no longer just about him, it's about you. Because if Lucifer was permitted to continue, then so is the test, and it has reached you. Not through fire and thunder, but through suggestion, through confusion, through a voice that sounds kind, looks beautiful, and imitates the light so well that only the awakened heart can tell the difference. You were never meant to passively drift through faith. You are born into a war where the enemy is subtle and the battlefield is within. For even Satan disguises himself as an angel of light. 2 Corinthians 11:14. That's what makes this so dangerous. Lucifer doesn't appear as darkness. He appears as truth, distorted just enough to lead you away. He offers comfort, spiritual shortcuts, even a form of righteousness, but without submission to God. And that is the essence of the test. Will you follow what feels right, or will you surrender to what is right, even when it costs you? Choose this day whom you will serve. Joshua 24:15. That choice isn't made once. It's made every time your soul hears the echo of two voices. One that flatters and one that convicts. One that promises glory and one that calls you to die to yourself. Lucifer was sent to expose what lies within. He did his part. Now, heaven waits to see yours. You are not watching this by accident. You were drawn here because somewhere inside you, the Spirit is stirring, not to fear Lucifer, but to remember who you are. You were not created to wander in deception. You were created to recognize the counterfeit and choose the true. Because the battle is still raging, the test is still ongoing, and now it's your turn to answer. The final judgment. There will come a day when the test ends. Lucifer, who was once sent, will be recalled. Not with grace, but with fire. His assignment, once sacred, now corrupted by pride, will be brought to a close, not by force, but by decree. That decree has already been written. And the devil who deceived them was thrown into the lake of fire and sulfur, and they will be tormented day and night forever and ever. Revelation 20:10. He does not win, he never could. The leash is long, but it is not infinite. The one who imitated light will one day be swallowed by eternal darkness, and with him every soul who chose to follow his false brilliance. This is not a moment of fear, it is a moment of truth, because judgment will not just fall on Lucifer, it will fall on those who embraced the lie, who mistook his whispers for wisdom, who loved the imitation more than the original, but those who endured, those who saw through the illusion, who clung to the true light even in silence and suffering, they will not be forgotten. They overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. Revelation 12:11. That is the promise. Heaven does not forget its faithful. The test was never meant to destroy you, it was meant to reveal you. And when the deceiver is finally silenced, the faithful will rise, not in pride, but in glory. Not because they were perfect, but because they chose the real light when the false one glittered louder. So now, as the world dims, as the shadows deepen, the question remains. Will you recognize the true light when it returns? Or will you be too familiar with the imitation to see it? Because the time is near. The judge is at the door, and the story of Lucifer is almost over. Even now he still walks, still whispers, still offers what seems like light. But the illusion is almost over. You were not supposed to hear this. But now that you have, you cannot go back to silence. If this truth stirred something in your spirit, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, speak it. Let the false light be exposed by the real. There are others still caught in the shimmer of deception, and perhaps you were called to be the one who opens their eyes. This is not just a video, this is a signal, a crack in the veil, a final trumpet sounding in the soul. So choose this day whom you will serve, because the one who was sent is returning to be judged, and the one who judges is standing at the threshold. He who has ears, let him hear. Matthew 11:15.